Welcome to the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, John Martin Keith. Celebrities, working class musicians, and people who work behind the scenes in all areas of the music industry will share their stories, encourage you, and give practical advice of ways you can make a living doing what you love in the music industry. This episode is brought to you by Edenbrook Productions. Edenbrook Productions is the company I founded to help musicians grow in their craft. Are you a songwriter, but maybe you've been told your songs aren't quite there yet? Or are your songs ready, but you don't feel stage ready? Or maybe music is your passion, but you feel imprisoned by your day job and you don't know what to do next to make your dream a reality. Well, Edenbrook Productions is here to help. We offer consulting services via phone call, Skype, and FaceTime. And for the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast listeners, we're offering an introductory 1-hour consultation special. Click on the link in the show notes to contact me, and let's get you making a living in the music industry. Hey everybody, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Today I'm talking with Natasha Owens in front of a live audience once again at Lifest Music Festival in Osh Kosh, Wisconsin. Today is our last episode to be in front of a live audience, so I'm super excited that you're here to be a part of it. Today Natasha shares how her first ever concert that she performed was opening for Michael W. Smith, which is a huge accomplishment for an independent artist. Also, she's going to talk about learning life lessons from another artist that everybody knows, Jason Crabb, who is an amazing Christian music artist, one of the best artists in all of music, in my opinion. We discuss what it's like to tour with a full band and the costs and challenges of owning your own production and tour bus and paying a large crew on the road, because this is something that's very unique that she gets to do as an independent artist, to be able to have a full touring production and a tour bus, which is really cool and really, really hard. Plus, when doing music ministry, how God does not call the equipped, He equips who He calls. Please enjoy my conversation today with Natasha Owens. All right, well, we'll get started. Thank you guys so much for hanging around and joining us. My name is John Martin Keith. I am a recording artist and a songwriter and a worship pastor and a producer and a booking agent and a podcast host and
all of it.
A lot of it. I'm kind of a jack of all trades kind of person in music. So I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and John Doherty, who's the festival director, we've known each other for like 21 years or something like that, when he was a stagehand starting out at Lifest. First time I played here, and so we've kind of come up the ranks together, him going into becoming the director of this whole thing, and me going off and doing music. And so grateful to get to be here and be with you guys. The podcast title says You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry. So you may be thinking, well, I don't do music and I don't want to do music, so you don't leave. You please hang out and listen, and you might learn something that you didn't know, be interested in. But if you are interested in music, is anybody do music? Anybody play music? All right, we got a couple. Awesome. Regardless, please feel free to ask questions as we kind of get into this. My guest is Natasha Owens. Please say hello to Natasha.
Hello.
She is from Texas, correct?
Correct.
And she does music. Is she performing today, right?
Yes.
Where are you performing?
At the cafe at 3:15.
That was where I performed at 3:15 yesterday. So
Cool.
The cafe stage is right across here, the big giant tent in the middle of the parking lot here. Go see her at 3:15 today and listen to her and her music. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of hear your story. What got you into music growing up, and ask some questions that people are interested in kind of knowing what you do and how you do it, and if anybody's interested in wanting to do music on the degree that you've done it, then hopefully we can give some advice and those types of things. So we're just going to have a conversation. So tell us where you're from and what got you started in music.
I live in Dallas, Texas, and I come from a musical family, but never wanted to be in the forefront because I had severe anxiety. And so I always praise sang or stood in the back of the choir, but never forward. And 11 years ago, my dad passed away. He was cleaning his guns at the table, and there was a bullet in the chamber, and it went off and hit him in the heart. And life as I knew it was gone. I down spiraled into a deep depression after the first year. And 6 months into my depression, my pastor called and said, I need you to be our music minister. And I said, I can't get out of bed every day. I'm depressed. And I have such anxiety, I can't step forward and be that for you. And so he kept calling and he kept calling, and he called on a day that the devil had already convinced me that the world would be a better place without me. So it saved my life. He called and he said, I just want you to listen. I want you to get up out of bed, and I want you to follow the footsteps that God wants you to do. And I said, I don't think I can do that. And he said, it's a process. Just trust him. And so he said, are you tired of feeling the way that you're feeling? And I said, yes. And he said, then this is your way out. I feel like this is your last lifeline. So I accepted that day. It took me years to dig out. I had to go get through anxiety. I had to dig through depression, recovery. But God was calling me to a place that I didn't know, and that was a training ground for what I'm doing now. So my story is very backwards, and it's very long. But my very first concert was with Michael W. Smith on a massive stage. My manager had called and said, do you want to sing for him? And I said, no. I don't have a band. I've never sang these songs live. I'm having a panic attack. And he said, just pray. It's October 3rd. And I said, I'll do it. And he said, what made you change your mind? I said, that's my dad's birthday. So God was in the details, knew that he had to put that out, different signals out there to know that I'm going in the right path. So that's how I started. I really didn't want to step foot on a big stage to minister, to be in the spotlight. But God always gets you out of your comfort zone, doesn't he?
He does. So, okay, let's back up for a second. You have a manager.
Yes.
So what got you into music to the point that you needed a manager to begin with? How long had you been doing music before that? And
Not at all. I was a music minister for 3 or 4 years. That church kind of fell apart. And I was in the floor one night. I had resigned, and I said, God, I just feel like you have more for me. The next day, a guy from Nashville who was a producer, we had brought him in to do choir clinics and things like that. He texted and said, have you ever thought about doing a CD? And I said, why do you ask? Do you know that I just resigned? And he said, no, I did not know that, but you've been on my heart since this morning. So I said, I know I need to do a CD that's a restoration project that helps people through a trial, but I didn't know who it was for.
Okay.
So once the CD was completed, it got in the hands of someone that worked for me, into the hands of a big manager in New York. And he had never helped anybody in the Christian genre before. He's been in the rock and pop genre for 20 years. And he said, I feel like God wants me to help you. I feel something different in your music.
Wow.
And that's how it all started.
So your first big show as a solo artist is playing for Michael W. Smith,
Yeah.
opening for him.
Yes.
I mean, so that's super cool. That doesn't happen normally. That's a very rare thing in the music business.
Yeah.
You know, the music industry is built on relationships. If you go back and listen to my podcast, there's 2 seasons of it out currently. So if you go back and listen to all the episodes, everything you hear pretty much in every single episode is that the music business is built on relationships. It's all who you know.
Yeah.
You can be amazingly talented and get a record deal or a publishing deal or opportunities to go perform. You can be mediocre talented and get those same opportunities if you work really, really hard. And there are amazingly talented people that will never do anything.
Right.
To the point that you're having CDs, you're out playing concerts, people know who you are. And then there's people that, that are decent. They got great songs. They don't have a great voice, but they have a unique voice, right? All these different things. But you've either worked really, really hard to get to whatever that is, or an opportunity, you've developed these relationships, and usually it's a combination of those two things.
Right.
You got an amazing voice, you got amazing music, and you've developed a relationship with someone who could put you in that position that most people don't get. So congratulations on that opportunity. So tell us what it was like performing with Michael W. Smith, or opening for him. Just you and your guitar? Piano?
No, I had a full band.
Okay, you did have a full band.
Had a full band, and even backup singers. I felt like I needed everything at that point. It was a massive stage, probably 10,000 people. Sean Hannity was in the crowd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know him and Michael are really good friends.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I had that one concert, and I had prepared, and then I didn't have anything on the books, and I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And I went to bed that night and said, God, guide me. And the next
Keep going. Keep
several
going.
days after that, a girl that I went to church with sent me an email, and she said, I don't know what this means, but I feel like I had a dream, and in the dream it just kept saying that I made it through is not the true message, that rising above is, and he will take you there on wings. And I called her and said, do you know that I have a CD called I Made It Through? And she said, I had no idea. So I knew that was the answer from God. So my second CD was Rising Above, and then that led to an Overcomer album called Warrior. Every album that I've done is another chapter of my recovery.
Okay. So tell us, you said that your music, you call it restoration. What's the full title that you've given?
Yeah, I just call it restoration music. It's
okay.
music for the broken, to give people hope, to let them know that God loves them.
Okay. How many of us are broken to some degree, right? We're all broken. We live in a sinful world. You know, we've all got our struggles and things that we deal with that make life hard. The thing that I love about music is that it's that universal language, right? That has, whether it's something that God has put into music, it's got healing properties to a certain degree. I'm not getting into like crazy weird stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But music has this ability to speak to you, right? In ways that words can't do sometimes. But when you can combine those things, amazing lyrics that are strong and deep and heartfelt and have true meaning and purpose to them, and you put that together with great music. Especially when there's the message of the gospel in it.
Right.
You know, those things, it could be life-changing, and God works to those things. I'm so grateful to get to be a part of that. What is your most important song to you? Do you have one that's for you personally is most important to you? Favorite?
Yeah, I have anthem songs on each CD that is so important to me, and that's the reason why I put them as my anthem songs. I Made It Through is very important to me because it talks about the whole process of those years compact into one song of God getting me through it when it seemed like it was my darkest day. And then We Will Rise came about kind of cool, and just in a very unique way where God breathed into that song, and that's all about rising above a trial. So that's very important to me. And then Warrior is my anthem for that third album, and it's such an overcoming song that God is with you through that battle, and that you are a warrior. You come out with scars that are your testimony, and you shouldn't be ashamed of those scars.
Yeah. So let's back up for a minute and talk about, when did you start playing music first? As a kid, like were you taking lessons for guitar, piano, or what? Tell us.
Yeah, I took lessons on the piano. I was such a tomboy growing up.
Okay. And
my mother forced me to take piano, which I hated every second of it. And I finally wore her down after like a year. I wished I hadn't have, because I can hear and I can go play something, but I don't officially, I'm not good enough to play in front of people or read music. Yeah, I can hear it though.
So how old were you when you started taking lessons?
7.
Okay. And you took for 1 year.
Took for 1 year.
But you play now.
I don't play now.
Okay, you don't play now.
I do enough to write a song or pick out parts, but I don't play. My sister started playing at 3 years old.
Okay.
My grandmother started playing at 3. I have just this unbelievable history throughout my family where they can just pick up any instrument and play it. I don't have that ability, and I think it's because my anxiety sometimes shuts me down, shuts the creativity down sometimes.
Sure. So, were you writing? When did you start writing music, writing songs?
So my first album, I didn't think I had the ability to write. I'd never written a song, and so we polled all these writers, and I picked 10 songs that I related to or that meant so much to me that I felt God had written them for me.
Other writers.
Okay, so that was the first album. The second album, my husband has this crazy faith, just so crazy, and he, for 6 months, was trying to find his place in my ministry. He can't play, and he's tone deaf completely. But I kept telling him, you're my anchor. You kind of hold me together. And he said, I want to be a part of the ministry. So he prayed. He said, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm either going to play like Liberace or sing like Pavarotti. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So it didn't happen at all. He was still tone deaf the next day. So 3 days later, he comes to me and he says, I keep having this dream that plays out in my head like a music video, because we're kids of the 80s, right? Like an MTV music video. And he started telling me about it. And I said, that's exactly how I felt in the midst of my depression. Write that down. That's a song. So we got the head of my band, who played guitar. he sat down and we wrote our very first song that went on the second album. Okay. And then that led to every song being written by a dream or a collaboration with my husband. And that's the way it's been from then on. He has notebook after notebook after notebook of dreams.
So your husband became the songwriter.
My husband became the, I don't know, I guess the antenna.
Yeah.
To where he was able to sit down, and yes, he became a songwriter.
So so I'm curious then, after your dad passed away, and I'm so sorry. I can't imagine.
It's tough.
That. I've lost my dad, but not to that extent.
Yeah,
it's a different thing. But after that, then you were invited to become a music minister at a church, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I'm trying to put all the puzzle pieces together.
It's such a long story. I don't know exactly what to tell you.
No, you're good. So I'm curious. Did the person at your church that wanted you to come be that position? Were you singing before that? Were you playing music before that? How did he know to say, we want you to come be the music?
I was praise singing at that church.
Okay.
And was over the praise singers for organizing them and so forth.
Okay.
And then I took a back seat when I went through depression and all of that. So he needed one, and I thought he was being really selfish. I'm like, you just need somebody. Go find somebody else. But it was God using him to save my life.
Yeah.
And give me a second chance.
Absolutely. And so now you're out touring. You're playing at Lifest.
Yes.
How many shows do you play a year?
When we started off, we were about 250 dates a year.
Okay.
And, you know, I was just taking...
When was this? When did you start?
This was 8 years ago.
Okay.
7 years ago on the road, after we created the first album 8 years ago, 7 years on the road. For 2 years, I was on the road with Jason Crabb, who is Southern Gospel.
Oh, yeah.
And once I got more established in contemporary, I had to choose Southern Gospel or contemporary. I couldn't do both. You just kind of get it. There's just a big, thick line. He's tried.
He's riding that line.
He's tried
as best as anybody can.
Yeah,
you know who Jason Crabb is? The Crabb family. You need to look up Jason Crabb. This dude has got a voice that will light you on fire. It's so good.
And that was my very first tour, and I was so intimidated. This happened so quickly and so backwards. I felt so intimidated, and he's a Grammy winner. And he sat me down and he said, Tosh, I know you struggle with anxiety. He said, God never calls the equipped, but he always equips who he calls, and rest in that. And from that point on, I embraced it rather than being fearful of it.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot being on the road with him.
So tell us some things. So living on the road and touring as an artist and doing all this stuff it's not for everybody. Most people, this is what you've wanted to do your whole life. This is what I've wanted to do my whole life. I've always wanted to be, since I was 4 years old. I started playing guitar when I was 4.
Wow.
Taking lessons. And when I was 5 years old, my dream was to be on the Grand Ole Opry playing a lead guitar for another artist.
Yeah.
And that has not happened yet, but my life is not over yet.
Yeah, it's not.
that could still happen. But I've got plenty of friends who play on the Opry all the time. But as I became a teenager, I started writing my own music. I wanted to do Christian music. I wanted to be an artist and worship leader and all those types of things. So that sort of sidesteps all that kind of stuff. But I've always wanted to be on the road touring, and I love living this life and doing this. My family usually comes with me most of the time, and you know, we kind of have a family ministry in that sense.
Oh, wow.
You know, but when you're out touring with Jason Crabb or Michael W. Smith, and you're on a tour bus or a van or whatever it is, and you're gone many, many dates in a row, what is that like for you guys? What was it like when you're touring with Jason Crabb?
Well, any tour is like Groundhog Day. Have y'all seen that movie? You wake up and it's the same thing over and over. If I was younger, it would be the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. I'm older, and it's just hard for these old people to be on the road. It just is. I mean, you've got a bus, but I don't sleep very well. You bounce all night long, and you wake up in the next destination, and you load in. It's an all-day affair. You have a concert, you load out, it's 1 o'clock when you leave, you hit a Waffle House because it's the only thing open.
Waffle House all the way. I love it.
And then you wake up in the next destination and you don't even know where you're at, right? So, but it's so much fun. I mean, you're compacted in a bus with 10 other people. You have to like them, right?
Yep.
we've had lots of drama, and that drama had to go because you just can't have drama in closed quarters like that, you know?
Yeah. So riding on you're doing the big giant tour bus, like the full Prevost.
Yeah, we have an
like
MCI star bus with a bedroom in the back.
Okay. So how many of you guys have always wanted to be on a tour bus? Just to even experience being on it, not to ride on one necessarily, but just to be in one to live it. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I got to do that years ago. I've never traveled on a tour bus, but
I call it a boat because that means break out another 1,000.
Right.
That's what it means.
Because they're so expensive.
So expensive.
So like
you change out a cord and you have to take out the entire couches and the entire kitchen. I mean, it's just ridiculous how compact they are. So
when you're playing shows now, and we're going to do some questions here, let the audience ask some questions here in a minute, but what types of venues are you playing mostly right now?
It depends on the tour. Probably 80% is churches.
Okay.
And then sometimes you have arenas. Sometimes you have big basketball courts, like at University of Arkansas or something, where they set up a stage. Sometimes it's theaters. Not movie theaters, but like performance theaters, or the theaters on college campuses hold 1,000 or 2,000 people.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Are you doing full band, or are you doing acoustic stuff sometimes?
Full band.
All the time.
Yeah, I was raised to, and I know it's a lot cheaper to go out just with a track rig and a computer and maybe a drummer, but my dad just instilled in me, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability, and God's blessed us, and so we roll out the full production, full screen, full band everywhere we go. It doesn't matter if it's 20 people or 20,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things I love about music and about Lifest. You're opening Michael W. Smith. You tour with Jason Crabb. Have you played main stage at Lifest or a fest?
I haven't played at Lifest.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Playing the cafe
is the first
stage.
Year.
This is your first year at Lifest ever?
First year at Lifest, and then
awesome.
I'm going to sing in Nashville in a couple weeks.
Are you coming to Nashville?
Yeah,
awesome.
I am.
How many of you guys know that there's going to be a Nashville Lifest in 2 weeks? It's going to be the inaugural event, so we're super, super excited. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff at that one. So I look forward to that. But what I love is that, everybody knows the main stage artists. And if you're not playing the main stage, a lot of times this is just in general. This is not the audience that's sitting here right now, but people in general sometimes think, well, if you're not on the main stage, you're not as good.
Yeah.
Right? As Newsboys or Matthew West or whatever. But that's obviously not true. If you're, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you, out with Michael W. or Jason Crabb. The music that every artist is doing is valuable. It is important, right? It's not just the main stage artists. So, but that's and you're living proof of that you're able to, you don't have to play the main stage. That's just a fraction. The music industry, the people that we know on the radio and TV and headlining festivals and whatever, that's the fraction. That is like 0.1% of the 1% of whatever. That's who everybody knows. But there are millions and millions of artists that under that that are out doing just as important things as well. And so it's trying to get an audience to know who you are.
Right.
So you got a new audience here, and that's exciting. Yeah. I'm so excited for that. Let's let the audience ask some questions. Anybody have a question? We're going to have a microphone if you do. You got any questions for Natasha? And would love, regardless if it's music or anything. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Okay, so as a musician myself, I recently took lessons, and my instructor talked to me about like best way to get gigs and whatnot. And as a Christian musician, it can be difficult sometimes because some of the gigs that are in the area are not necessarily environments that you want to put yourself in. Like you said, well, this bar or this pub owner, they got this gig, and it's just kind of like, well, I don't necessarily want to do that. So you got any practical advice as to how to get gigs as a Christian artist and still consistently perform?
Goodness, it's hard, and it's exactly what he said. It's all in who you know. A lot of times when I need like a guitar player or a fill-in bass player or whatever, if someone can't make a tour date, it's really, I know a guy.
Yep.
And so it's such a small world in Nashville, but there's so many musicians, and a lot of musicians move to Nashville because of that reason. It's just getting the contacts and getting to know people, right?
Yeah, I agree. As far as like venues, if you're trying to find new venues to play as a Christian music artist, let me ask you this. Let me kind of rephrase it just for a second for Natasha. You have a booking agent now?
Yes.
Who does your booking for you?
Scott Caldwell.
Scott Caldwell. So Scott is the one who is fielding venues for you.
Yes.
So she's in a position where she's got a booking agent that's going out and finding shows for her, right? You are wanting, as an artist, to find venues for yourself. You don't have a booking agent necessarily doing it for you, correct? Is that right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So what I do, because I'm my own booking agent as well, I do booking for some other artists in addition. But really the best thing that you can do at this point is try to find the venues that you're wanting to play. If it's churches or coffee houses or, whatever that is going online, Google. Everybody uses Google, right? DuckDuckGo.
Same.
The safer version, I guess, of Google. But going on and looking up the types of venues that you're wanting to play. If you're wanting to play at a church, are you looking to do the church as a whole? Are you looking to do the college ministry, the youth ministry, the kids ministry, depending on what style of music you're wanting to do and the audience that you're trying to reach in that context, right? Finding the pastor, the worship pastor or the youth pastor, kids pastor, reading up on who they are. This is a really important thing for me because I do a lot of research on churches for different, as far as booking shows, but also for some other things that I do. And I always want to read who the church is, what their doctrine statement is, find out, that they are biblically sound, because you'd be surprised, unfortunately, how many churches are in this day and age are really off kilter on what doctrine and theology is. So I always want to make sure that wherever I'm booking shows, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, that those things are legit, okay? And if they aren't, just avoid it. If they are good, then they've always got a phone number or an email or an Instagram or a Facebook. All those guys do now. And just reach out to them and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm looking to come do some shows. Just reach out, cold call.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Honestly,
there's nothing wrong with that. We do that as well.
Yeah, I do it all the time. And give them your website. If you got a website, this is super important. Make sure you have a website. Because we live in a digital, online, social media world. So you either need to have a website or at least a Facebook page. I would definitely prefer a website. Both is good, but if you have to have one or the other, you definitely need to get a website. Even you can build your own now. It's super easy. But you really do need to have something, because if they can't find you, or if it's really cruddy looking, it looks like it was built in 1993 when the internet first started. You can tell. And if it looks like you're not staying up to date on those types of things, then that really is a turn off to people. So that's maybe a lot more information that you wanted, but those are some key points for me.
That's the number one thing any artist needs to do is a website. You got to have a landing point. You got to have somebody to go and be able to, get to your music.
Yeah. Do you have a website?
No, I do not.
There you go.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go. So you need to have a website. Do you have recorded music?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine. So you're just starting all this, and that's great, because the people listening to the podcast, there's plenty of people that are exactly where you are right now that are wanting to do it. You're playing music, you're writing music, but you need to record something. Even if you just record a demo, an acoustic demo, or a piano, vocal, guitar vocal, or whatever. Even if that's all you're doing, get a well-produced version of that. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just needs to be clean and clear and sound good. And then put 2 or 3 songs up on a website on what's Squarespace or one of those things, and just give people some pictures. Write a bio up, put some songs out on there, so that people know where to come and listen to you.
Actually, you can sign up for a website called CD Baby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I heard of that.
Will upload your music, and it will put it to iTunes and all kind of streaming. You got to build a foundation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Another question?
We got a question right here.
All right.
Yeah, just had a question about specifics. When you're on the road, are you carrying your own mics, your own lighting, your electricians, your musicians, your instruments, and everything?
Everybody but an electrician. We carry all of our subs, our mics, our speakers, everything. All of our instruments. We carry the towers that hold the lights, a whole lighting rig, as well as a 30-foot screen that goes in the middle. And so we have band, and then we have crew guys, sound, light guys, and everybody helps load in and get it all set up. If we need an electrician, the church usually provides that for us. And sometimes we do. Sometimes they don't have a big enough circuit box for us.
So, if you were here last night for the Newsboys, if you watched their show or any of the ones before those, each one of those artists, every time an artist played their show yesterday on the main stage, that was their rig. That was their setup. For the most part, that was like their backdrops. That was all their instruments, all their gear. And then when they would tear down, and you had 15, 20 minutes in between the next artist, they were setting up the next one. They were pulling their gear in front of that and setting that up. So Newsboys, all the video panels and lighting, all that kind of stuff, that's their stuff. You know, the event is providing the people to help put it all together.
And a lot of the big artists, they have to have 18-wheelers to accommodate all of that. We've got a massive 15-foot trailer that's 10 feet tall, but we've outgrown it. Now we have speakers inside the bus, so we're having to go to a box truck now.
Nice.
In order to provide the level of show that we want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I played a show a couple years ago, and I usually take my own sound system to do stuff. And for whatever reason, I didn't take it to this particular venue. And sound check went great. I was using their house, system, and sound check went great. Was so excited, and then right as we got started, it cut out. The system did, and I was flipping out, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and
Plan B.
And eventually, it sort of worked, but it was like a C-, show in my opinion, and
it always happens when people are there that you know.
And, my family
time.
was there, and people that I knew, and I was just like, oh man, just things happen. It's what it is, but that just reinforced it in my mind. It's like, okay, always take your own gear because there's always going to be problems.
Right.
Always going to be problems. So that's something that we always try to do. Anybody else have a question? Yes, over here.
Hi. His question made me think about, so how many people are really on your crew, and how do you get them all there, and how much does it actually cost to do that whole one show?
That is a great question.
A fortune. My tour bus has 6 bunks in the middle. So the front is a living room area and a kitchen. And then you go into the middle part, and it's 6 bunks. They have their own DVD players and air conditioning and all of that. And then you have a bedroom in the back. We've outgrown that bus because we have 4 musicians, four band members, and then we have sound and lights, but we need more crew guys. So right now the crew guys are on the 2 couches in the front. So we have 8 guys, we need 9. So we are now getting a bus that has 12 bunks in the middle and no bedroom for me in the back. So I've got to climb up into a top bunk. I'm so claustrophobic that I have to be in a top bunk, and seeing me try to get into a bunk whenever it's moving is pretty entertaining.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So for the cost, each musician costs a daily rate. And, it ranges from $250 to $300 a day per musician. Light and sound guys are $300 a day. The grunt labor guys are $250 a day. So you add all of that up. If you're on the road and you've got an off day, most artists pay half that rate for travel. I don't. I think that it's their time and they're on the road, so I pay them a full rate no matter what it is.
You're amazing.
Yeah, and I pay costs like I'm a full headliner, even when some of my shows are not headliners. These guys have to make a living, and if they've committed to me, then I want to give them something back. So it's a fortune. Then you have to pay for gas at six miles a gallon, diesel, and then your bus driver. Actually, the bus drivers tend to be, in my experience, the most diva and the most drama. I always say I'm the only female on the bus, and I'm not the diva. So you have to pay them about $300 a day, $350 if they pull a trailer, and you have to get them bedded down within an hour or two of arriving somewhere. If you arrive at 6 a.m., you can't always get into a hotel. You got to pay for the hotel for the night before to get them bedded down. So, and then they have to sleep so long. Everything is around that bus driver's schedule because the routing, you can't go more than so many miles or so many hours on the road, and then he has to stop and sleep for 8 hours uninterrupted before he can get behind that wheel again. So if you've got a long trip, you have to plan for that, or you have to get another bus driver to come in to trade off with him. So it gets very, very, very pricey.
But all that being said, you, as an artist, you're getting paid enough because you're
sometimes.
Well, I mean, you're paying their salary.
Yes.
You know, it's all on you. You're the boss, so to speak.
Right.
You know, and you got all these people. How many people do you have total right now? You think?
We have 9.
9 total. You know, that you're having to pay every day that you're out on the road.
Yeah.
And stuff. So that's amazing. But hopefully you're making enough money when you're playing the shows that's covering those things, and so you're still able to make a living to at least to some degree. You're at a sort of that pinnacle place of, you know, it feels like you're doing it, but maybe just barely sometimes if it pays well.
Yes, and sometimes it falls upside down. This is more of a ministry for me. We do own our own business, and God has blessed that so much in the past few years. It's so that we're able to do the things that we are doing. If I see someone come through my line that is heartbroken, I give them music because I'm not going to ask them to buy my music. They need it, right? And God gives that back. But yeah, on the road, there's different ways to make money. If you're a songwriter, you don't make as much money these days because of the streaming has really crippled the industry.
We talked about that yesterday.
Boy, that songwriters now have to have second jobs because they can't live most of the time unless they have a #1 hit every time on the charts. Merch, for an artist, merch tables are very important. And then you get paid for singing and bringing your stuff. Sometimes it's just cutting even. I'm a spokesperson for Holt International, and so I'm very, very passionate about that. It took me years to find the right ministry. But they help with tours. They help provide some of the costs.
They're sponsors.
Yes, they're sponsors.
They help cover some of the costs for those types of things. And, you know, just like when you see all these banners up for the festival, all these different, you know, festival foods and all these different things, they're sponsoring this event, so they're giving money to help put it on, to help pay the artists to come and all that, so the proceeds can go to Dignity Revolution and all those types of things.
And I own my own production and everything, so a lot of times I'll get on a headlining tour because I have my production, because they don't sometimes have it. So they will pay me to bring my production and use my guys to set it up and all of that, and that's some way that we get money to pay my guys.
Yep, that's awesome. We'll get it wrap up here. One last question? Anybody got one last question? Yes, yeah, please.
It's not really a question. I worked for a race car company, made a lot of money.
Wow.
You know, they went belly up. And I said, what do I want to do now? I said, I'm going to be a sound guy. So it's been a lot of 10 years, basically. Wrap it up real quick, like. A couple months ago, I spent thousands of dollars. I told God, I said, you really want me to go buy a sound system? He's like, yeah, buy a sound system. So now I'm 60. Long story short, I am booked solid through October.
That's fantastic.
So,
That's great.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
So you can do it. Doesn't matter how old or
That's right.
you are.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yep, absolutely.
I have found in my life that God always calls you out when it doesn't make sense logically. He pulls you out, whether it's age, whether it's some kind of circumstance. We always say, I don't have time. It's not the right time, God, but God knows exactly what he's doing. And so when he calls you out, don't worry about your age. Don't worry about your circumstance. He has something for you.
Yeah. What would be, just as we wrap up, some advice, whether or not, you know, somebody's out here that's like the gentleman's started a sound company, got his own stuff. But for people that are just interested in knowing, like, what is some advice that you would give people that are wanting to get into music or that are trying to do music, and for a living, and what are some do's and don'ts that you would tell people? These are the things that you should do. These are some things you should avoid, maybe.
Yeah. So your very first thing, like we've covered, you have to do a website.
Yep.
And the next question out of anybody's mouth is, "I want to hear you music." So you got to get something down. Something. It's a single world today. What I mean by singles is single songs going to radio. It used to be a full album, which I'm old school. I like doing a full album.
Me too.
And so that's what I do, but that's not the norm. They'll do singles to radio, and then they'll create an EP which has 4 or 5 songs on it, or they'll create an album once everything has gone to radio. So you don't have to do a full project that costs you $25,000 or $50,000 or however much it's going to cost for an album. Just get music done so that you have physical, intellectual property to show people. The next thing you can do is get video. We live in a very visual world, so video is very important. Anything that you can show to sell yourself, sell your ministry in a very short amount of time, within a minute. Then you've got to figure out how to get gigs in a band and so forth. PR is very important. Public relations, management is very important. Booking agents are very important, but sometimes that doesn't come until you've proven yourself with the basic foundation.
Yep, doing it yourself until the point that you are so busy booking your own stuff and promoting your own music that you need help, and that you're showing that you've proven yourself to the point that someone else sees, like, oh, this person's got value in their music and what they're doing, and I can see that they need help, and I believe in what they're doing. And then that's usually when a manager or promoter or somebody like that is going to jump in and help.
There's different roads. That's the kind of the road. Mine's backwards. The other way is, you get a single and you try to get a radio promoter to get it to radio, and it needs to be at the right time, the right song, the weather conditions have to be right. There's no rhyme or reason. They haven't figured it out. But one thing that record labels do look at is YouTube. They look at YouTube, they look at social media, and if you have some kind of video that goes viral, that you have 1 million people looking at it, then they will be calling you. So it's a very grassroots, independent, indie market right now that anybody can get their attention through social media and YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you, audience, for being here and hanging out. So grateful for that. Would you please say thank you? And
thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the day. All right, guys. Well, there you go. Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Natasha Owens today at Lifest. What a great person that she is, and what a great conversation that we got to have. Such a unique thing that she gets to tour with a full touring production setup and tour bus and take a full crew out on the road. It's such a unique thing as an independent artist to get to do that kind of thing. So it's really encouraging. I hope you guys are able to take this and you can apply it to what you're doing, especially if you're an independent artist out on the road touring around, and that it will give you something to aspire to get to do what she's doing. So thank you again for that. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and be sure to tell your friends about it. And I hope you're learning lots and lots and lots. Please let me know how things are going with you. And remember, Edenbrook Productions is here to help if you need consulting services via phone call, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime. Be sure to let us know how we can help you begin to make a living in the music industry.